Imagine a cargo ship disappearing on one of the world's most closely monitored maritime routes, leaving authorities across Europe on high alert. Kidnapped crew members, Russian fighter jets deployed, and rumors of cargo far more valuable than just timber. But what really happened aboard the Arctic Sea? Modern piracy? International conspiracy? Today, you'll uncover every detail of this mysterious story full of intrigue, secrets, and unexpected twists. The Baltic Sea, with its cold waters and calm routes, has long been considered one of the safest places for maritime navigation. Its routes connect countries like Sweden, Finland, Russia, and Germany, serving as a vital artery for European trade. For decades, the idea of a major incident in this region seemed unthinkable. But that changed in 2009, when the disappearance of the cargo ship Arctic Sea made headlines worldwide. A commercial vessel carrying sawn timber simply vanished without a trace, leaving authorities baffled. The incident not only shook perceptions of safety in the Baltic, but also raised an unsettling question. Are we really as secure at sea as we think? The disappearance of the Arctic Sea wasn't just an unusual event. It marked the return of piracy to a region where such crimes had almost become extinct. And the most shocking part? This wasn't the type of piracy we imagine, with small boats and men wielding machetes. The attackers employed a sophisticated plan, which I'll delve into later in this video. Friends, this level of planning and execution introduced a new kind of threat to Europe's commercial routes. The Arctic Sea disappeared, but the impact of the case resonated as a warning to all countries that depend on maritime trade. After all, if this could happen in such a safe region, what's to stop it from occurring elsewhere? The Arctic Sea was a modest yet efficient cargo ship. Registered in Malta, it measured approximately 97 meters in length, the equivalent of a 30-story building lying on its side. While it wasn't a giant of the seas, its structure was solid and reliable, ideal for transporting cargo like sawn timber. The ship had a capacity of about 4,000 tons of cargo and was equipped with basic but effective navigation systems for the time. It wasn't a luxury or high-tech vessel, but it got the job done. And that's what makes everything even stranger. A common ship, with nothing exceptional about it, shouldn't have attracted so much attention. So, why the Arctic Sea? What was aboard that justified such a meticulous hijacking? On board the Arctic Sea were 15 Russian sailors, all experienced. In maritime transport, they were hard-working seafarers, accustomed to the heavy routines and challenges of navigating long routes. Life on board wasn't luxurious, just discipline and a commitment to completing the journey. The ship carried sawn timber valued at $1.8 million, a valuable cargo but hardly worth the scale of an international operation. Its route was clear: depart Finland, cross the Baltic Sea and the Atlantic, and reach Algeria. The crew couldn't have imagined that this voyage would be any different from countless others. For them, it was just another job. But, as they say, the sea has its own logic, and sometimes it turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. And here's one of the most intriguing parts of this story, in my opinion. When the Arctic Sea disappeared, Russia mounted an impressive effort to locate it. Fighter jets, warships, and even elite teams were deployed in the rescue operation. Now, think about this. Why such a reaction over a ship carrying only timber? The response seemed disproportionate. This was when the first suspicions arose that the Arctic Sea might not just have been carrying wood. Could there have been something hidden in its cargo that justified such a massive mobilization? Think about it. This question would echo throughout the investigation, but for now, the mystery remained intact. The ship had vanished, and the world began to wonder. What was really aboard the Arctic Sea? It was an ordinary day for the Arctic Sea crew. The cargo ship sailed calmly through the Baltic Sea, a route considered so safe it was almost routine for the sailors. But on July 24, 2009, everything changed. Near the islands of Åland and Gotland, off the Swedish coast, a small boat approached. The freighter. On board were men posing as Swedish police officers. Wearing uniforms and carrying forged documents, they claimed to be investigating possible drug trafficking. The crew, having no reason to suspect otherwise, allowed the supposed officers to board. This was a fatal mistake. Once on deck, the men revealed their true intentions. Armed and organized, they quickly overpowered the crew, restraining the sailors, and taking control of the ship. The attack was swift and precise, clearly showing that the hijackers knew exactly what they were doing. Some crew members were injured in the initial confrontation, but no one was killed, at least not at that moment. When news of the attack began to circulate, Swedish authorities were shocked and unsettled. Initially, there were even questions about whether the police officers were indeed Swedish agents, but it soon became clear that they were part of a highly organized criminal group. Sweden denied any involvement in the incident, and early investigations revealed that the documents used by the hijackers were forgeries. Even so, the idea of pirates operating so boldly in Scandinavian waters was unprecedented. Authorities began tracking the ship, but the Arctic Sea seemed to have vanished. You might be wondering, how does a nearly 100-meter-long freighter simply disappear in the middle of the Baltic? This was the question that began to haunt not only the Swedes, but also other countries in the region. After the attack in the Baltic Sea, the Arctic Sea maintained some contact for a few days. On July 28, 2009, its last communication was recorded as it passed through the Dover Strait off England's southern coast. After that, there was complete radio silence. And here's the strangest part. The Arctic Sea wasn't a small fishing boat or private yacht. It was a nearly 100-meter-long freighter equipped with standard tracking systems that made it visible to any maritime radar. The crew stopped responding to radio calls and the navigation system signals were deactivated. This omission left authorities bewildered. A ship doesn't disappear without help, or without intention. As authorities tried to trace the freighter, reports of possible sightings began to emerge. First near Brest, France, then a fisherman claimed to have seen a similar ship off the Portuguese coast. But there was one problem. No record was made when the ship should have passed through the Strait of Gibraltar, the natural entry point to the Atlantic. If the Arctic Sea had indeed crossed this area, why wasn't it detected? And if it didn't cross, how could it have ended up so far away? These questions only deepened the mystery. With each new report, the case grew more perplexing. It became clear that someone was trying to hide the Arctic Sea, but the reason remained as murky as the waters it sailed. On August 3rd, after the ship had been missing for days, Interpol issued an international alert. This was the moment when the disappearance went from being a regional problem to a global issue. Russia, deeply invested in the case due to the Russian crew on board, mobilized naval forces, including warships and aircraft, to initiate an intense search. Other European countries, such as Portugal and France, also contributed to the efforts. Despite this massive mobilization, there was no sign of the Arctic Sea. It was as though the ship had vanished into a black hole, defying all available tracking technologies. And here's the question that baffled everyone. How does a 4,000-ton ship disappear in one of the world's most closely monitored regions? The North Atlantic and its adjacent routes are heavily patrolled and monitored by radars. Yet the Arctic Sea seemed invisible. This ability to disappear led to theories that the hijacking wasn't a simple criminal operation, but something much more elaborate, perhaps involving intelligence agencies or geopolitical interests. The Arctic Sea's disappearance wasn't just a mystery. It was a direct challenge to logic and common sense. After weeks of silence, and with the world on high alert on August 14, 2009, clues finally surfaced about the Arctic Sea's whereabouts. Reports indicated that the ship had been sighted near the Cape Verde Islands, off the west coast of Africa. This was a critical moment. How did a freighter destined for Algeria end up so far off course? It was thousands of kilometers from the Mediterranean, sailing in a region where it shouldn't have been. But the mystery didn't end there. On August 17th, Russia's Minister of Defense officially confirmed that the Arctic Sea had been located and was about to be boarded by military forces. This announcement brought a mix of relief and tension. If the ship was found, what secrets would it reveal after weeks of silence? The rescue operation was led by the Russian warship Ladnaya, a vessel equipped for high-complexity missions. The approach was cautious. Although the Arctic Sea showed no signs of resistance, it still carried the potential for unpleasant surprises. When soldiers finally boarded, they found the 15 Russian crew members alive but visibly shaken. They had been held hostage on the ship for weeks, with no idea if or when they would be rescued. What truly shocked the authorities, however, was the presence of 8 hijackers on board, hailing from various nationalities, including Russians, Estonians, and Latvians. The group was immediately detained but refused to provide clear explanations about their motivations or what they were looking for on the ship. The crew was taken to safety while the Arctic Sea was inspected. But even at that point, no one could explain why so much effort had been invested in a freighter supposedly carrying only timber. If you thought the mystery ended here, you're mistaken. The rescue operation felt more like a scene from a spy movie than a typical mission. The presence of military forces, the capture of hijackers, and the silence surrounding the cargo fueled even more speculation. Was the Arctic Sea really just carrying timber? Or was something hidden among the planks, something that justified the sophisticated hijacking and international-scale search? These questions weren't immediately answered, leaving the world to wonder what was truly happening behind the scenes. The 8 hijackers found on board the Arctic Sea formed such a heterogeneous group that they seemed straight out of an espionage film. They came from different countries, including Russia, Estonia, and Latvia, with ages ranging from 25 to 55. These weren't ordinary pirates. They were organized, discreet, and by all appearances, professionals. But what brought these people together? That was one of the biggest enigmas of the case. While some of them had histories of minor crimes, others appeared to be ordinary individuals with no apparent connection to illegal activities. This only deepened suspicions that there was something much bigger behind this operation. The most surprising aspect was the tactics the hijackers employed. Disguised as Swedish police officers, they approached the ship with a convincing story. They were conducting an anti-drug investigation and needed to inspect the freighter. This disguise was key to gaining the crew's trust, allowing them to board. Once on deck, the hijackers quickly revealed their true intentions, subduing the sailors and taking control of the ship. For the weeks that followed, they used intimidation tactics to maintain control. They threatened to detonate explosives if the crew attempted to rebel or escape. While no one was killed, the sailors endured constant psychological pressure, which explained their distressed state after the rescue. What truly stood out was the level of sophistication in the operation. Unlike conventional piracy, which often involves direct and violent approaches, the hijackers of the Arctic Sea employed meticulous and calculated strategies. This complexity raised a crucial question. Who was behind this group? After all, this didn't seem like an isolated act by ordinary criminals. Theories began to emerge, suggesting it might have been a mercenary operation or even the work of an intelligence agency. These doubts would remain central to the case, fueling speculation and turning the Arctic Sea into an enigma that seemed impossible to solve. The Arctic Sea's official cargo was sawn timber valued at $1.8 million. However, from the start, this information raised suspicions. Timber, though valuable, hardly seemed worth the enormous costs of a military rescue operation. Something didn't add up. Speculation began to swirl. Could the ship have been carrying something far more significant? Some theorists suggested that the freighter might have been transporting secret weapons. Rumors pointed to a possible shipment destined for the Middle East, potentially for countries like Iran or Syria, places facing strict international sanctions at the time. Even more intriguing was the silence of Russian authorities about the case. While they denied any wrongdoing, their insistence on treating the rescue with absolute secrecy only fueled suspicion. If the cargo was just timber, why all the mystery? This is where things get even more complicated. Russia's involvement in such an elaborate military operation sparked theories that the Arctic Sea case wasn't just a hijacking, but part of a larger geopolitical game. Some sources claimed that international intelligence agencies, such as Israel's Mossad, were monitoring the ship, suspecting it carried illegal weapons. If such weapons existed, they could shift the balance of power in an already unstable region. Others suggested the ship might have been used to smuggle advanced military technology, such as missile systems or other classified components. While no definitive proof ever emerged, the maneuvers surrounding the case implied that much more was at stake than met the eye. One of the most frustrating aspects of the Arctic Sea case was the level of secrecy maintained by Russian and European authorities. Since the rescue, no concrete evidence has been released about the cargo's true nature or the hijackers' real motivations. This lack of transparency fueled an avalanche of conspiracy theories. Some believed that the Russian government knew exactly what was happening and sought to minimize the case's exposure. Others suspected that the silence was a way to avoid an international scandal. For the general public, the case of the Arctic Sea remained as enigmatic as the day it first made headlines. After the rescue of the Arctic Sea and the arrest of the hijackers, the case entered a new chapter. The courts. The 8 hijackers, detained on board, were sent to Russia, where they faced a tightly controlled trial. The charges were severe: piracy, kidnapping, and threats to maritime security. Throughout the proceedings, Russian authorities kept most of the information under wraps, further reinforcing the idea that there was more to the case than met the eye. The hijackers claimed their intention wasn't to harm the crew, but to recover a supposed high-value cargo. However, no details were provided about what this cargo might have been. This lack of explanation only deepened the mystery, turning the trial into a spectacle of speculation. At the end of the trial, the sentences were handed down. The hijackers received prison terms ranging from 7 to 12 years. The group's leader, identified as Yevgeny Mironov, was sentenced to 7 years of hard labor, a punishment that underscored the seriousness of their crimes. While the sentences were firm, many questioned whether they truly closed the case. After all, the trial focused solely on the hijackers' actions, leaving aside crucial questions about the cargo's true nature and the potential geopolitical implications. For the public, the Arctic Sea case felt like an unfinished puzzle, with the most important pieces left missing. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Arctic Sea case was the delay in rescuing the ship, despite the massive military and technological mobilization. Think about it. Why did the rescue take so long? Some theories suggested the search was intentionally delayed to allow the ship to reach a more isolated area, and this would give time for certain interests to be protected, whether by removing a sensitive cargo or avoiding information leaks to other countries. Others believed Russia knew the Arctic Sea's location all along, but kept its disappearance a secret until it was convenient to act. Considering the secrecy surrounding the case, this hypothesis doesn't seem entirely far-fetched. The cargo, perhaps the most contentious part of the entire story. Officially, the Arctic Sea was carrying sawn timber, a common commodity for a ship on that route. But, as we've discussed, this explanation never fully convinced anyone. First, there was the declared value of the timber, $1.8 million. While high, it didn't seem enough to justify fighter jets, warships, and elite rescue forces. Then came the rumors of hidden weapons or military technology smuggled among the planks. The Russian authorities' silence only reinforced these suspicions. If the cargo was really just timber, why not allow independent audits of the case? Why so much secrecy? To this day, no one knows for sure what the Arctic Sea was truly carrying. Beyond the mystery of the ship itself, the case generated significant diplomatic tensions. Russia, which led the rescue operation, was accused of handling the case opaquely, fueling speculation that there was more at play. Some believed Russia's actions were an attempt to prevent certain secrets from falling into the wrong hands, whether those of Western countries or the Middle East. This raised doubts about potential conflicts of interest between intelligence agencies and governments, placing the Arctic Sea at the center of a geopolitical chess game. In the end, the most significant implication was the impact on international trust. Stories like that of the Arctic Sea remind us that, no matter how much we try to control the ocean, it remains an untamable force, a space where the unknown not only exists, but thrives. The disappearance and rescue of the Arctic Sea delivered a clear message. Even in the most monitored waters, the sea remains a place where secrets can be hidden, and where questions often go unanswered. Well, my friends, if you've made it this far, I'd love to know, what do you think really happened to the Arctic Sea? What secret was it carrying? Leave your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories like this one. And if you found this case fascinating, click the video appearing on the screen now to discover another captivating maritime mystery. See you next time.